the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Hello guys, and welcome to episode 160 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Bexon. Today we're going to be talking with Brandon Richardson. He's the founding partner and owner of Sotheby's International Realty, the Wanderlust Group sales office in Nosara. As many of you know, Nosara is one of the most sought after destinations in the country for investments and also tourism. So today we're going to be talking to Brandon about his experiences and where he thinks that Nosara is going to go in the future. I believe this is the first time that we actually have a realtor from Nosara. I've been trying, but finally, we basically, I think, got the #1 realtor in Nosara, no offense to anybody else if I have offended, to come on and talk to us kind of about what makes the area so special. As many as you know, it's kind of one of the most talked about places in Costa Rica, and also probably one of the most expensive as well. I think it's up to $1,500 a square meter in some areas. So, but remember, guys, if anyone wants to reach out to us about doing anything in Costa Rica, we're working with quite a lot of you guys, helping you find the right investment property in Costa Rica or finding the right location. A lot of the time you're confused by locations. And we are a pretty good matchmaker with locations. So then that, and then going a little bit deeper into understanding really investment that you're trying to make or the lifestyle that you're looking for, just to make sure you make the right decision when it comes to investing in Costa Rica. You can reach us info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. And our contact details are also in the description down below. But enough of me, let's get straight into it. Good morning, Brandon. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, you too, man. I really appreciate. I was actually thinking the other day, I don't think we've had anyone that works in real estate in Nosara on the podcast before. So you're our first after 160 episodes, which I can't believe.
Well, you got the right guy.
Exactly. That's what I said. In the intro, I said we got the #1 guy. I'm sure I offended quite a few people by saying that, but anyway, so But well, let's get straight into the podcast, just because again, it's an area that's of great interest. It's very well known, and I think over the last kind of 15 to 20 years, it's really developed heavily. But the question that a lot of people are asking at the moment, with like inflation rates worldwide kind of creeping up, economies slowing. How has this been? Have you seen this hitting Costa Rica, but more specifically Nosara and Nosara real estate?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm definitely very Nosara centric. My whole career has been here going back to 2001. So I know this market very well. The greater Costa Rica market, not so much.
Yep.
But we had obviously post-pandemic was a wild ride. We had 2.5, 3 years where the market was just on fire, and it was a lot of fun, and there was some great transactions and then last year we definitely saw a slowdown, but it was really not too much of a slowdown in interest. It was more we had, I think, with the Fed, adjusting the interest rate and things like that, we had buyers coming down expecting to find, or maybe hoping to find, really deep discounts, and our sellers weren't interested in doing that. And so what we had was just kind of a stalemate. Thankfully, in the last month or so, we've really started to see that thaw out, where it's just gone back to more of a standard market where sellers understand they're going to have to negotiate, buyers are making reasonable offers, and we're starting to get deals done again.
Yeah, I think the whole country kind of is starting to see that. I mean, I think the interesting thing about Nosara is it's probably some of the wealthiest people in Costa Rica, and to some extent, potentially the world, have relocated or have property in Costa Rica, and the majority of them are cash buyers. So it doesn't have a huge impact for probably a lot of them, heavily discounting properties to sell it. They're just willing to sit on it.
Correct. And, our market is always bolstered by the fact that there's just always a lack of product. There's just not that many properties in Nosara. And so that is just like a backstop for stability in a lot of cases.
Yeah, no, we've seen that in other markets as well, where the demand certainly outstrips the supply, and I don't see that changing for Nosara. Again, I think a bit of a leveling off, but that tide is certainly higher than it was pre-pandemic.
Definitely, and so what we're seeing is normal kind of growth where we've had the post-pandemic rush really brought some communities that were considered on the fringe into the spotlight. And so we've seen some of the outer markets. There's a community just outside of Playa Garza called Delicias that's gotten very popular. You know, the sales agents love to refer to it as the Brooklyn of Nosara. It's become the more affordable hip area, which I love. And then even north, as far as Ostional, we're seeing Ostional start to gain traction as well. So yeah, there's always a demand for that prime time, you know, in the original, you know, Guiones downtown, but definitely people are starting to find and understand the value of being a little further out.
Yeah. I mean, where do you think there is opportunity still, Brandon, in the market? Like, where are you personally investing, or where would you be investing money?
Yeah. So I'm an active investor locally, and I mix it up. I think that if you're going to invest in Guiones into the main part of the original community, that the investment almost has to be construction. It's harder to find raw land deals, but you can drive value by designing and building something that's attractive and on brand for the community. And then I also have properties both north and south. In particular, I really like Ostional. It's a cute little Tico community. And there's the trick with Ostional is there's not very many small properties. But that's also part of the attraction for the people who are investing up here is that they're ocean view properties. You can walk to the beach, but they're larger. You know, most of them are at least 2 acres in size, so a little more expensive, but great value long term, I think.
And I mean, when talking about these areas, to just put it in perspective, I mean, how much would you say a square meter is in Nosara, you know, in Guiones compared to, say, Garza, compared to Ostional, just so that people have an idea of, you know,
Sure.
what they're dealing with?
So I'm not a huge fan of price per square meter because I find it to be deceiving depending on the size of property. But as a range, Playa Guiones, the main part of the community is probably between 500 and 900 a square meter, where if you move out into Ostional, you're probably looking at 150 to 200 a square meter. Delicias is probably in the 90 to 130 a square meter.
Okay. Well, I think that gives people an idea of just the variation there between Nosara. I mean, you know, people always ask me, they go, Rich, how did Nosara happen? You know, and I'm always like, well, from what I from see and understand is like it was already subdivided years and years and years ago, right?
Yeah, so Nosara has a really kind of fascinating history, especially if you're, you know, a real estate geek like I am. You know, the community was Costa Rica's first expat community. So in the late 1960s, a group of developers came down, they bought up about 2,000 acres of land, and they set about subdividing and creating. Their original plan was, you know, a golf course retirement community. Yep. So a big part of our value and what draws people here and the communities built around this is that the community was master planned. So it wasn't just a fishing village that was kind of developed haphazardly. And thankfully, somebody smart in the 80s decided that the golf courses were a bad idea, and all of that land was converted over to parkland. So our community has large tracts of parkland that are wound throughout the community, including our beachfront and maritime zone that was donated to the Ostional Turtle Refuge. And so we are a conservation community. There are large sections of our main community that will never be developed.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people like to compare Nosara and Santa Teresa, and I'm like, you can't compare them. They're very different people, and it's a very different vibe. You know, Santa Teresa is more of kind of like a beach surf town, and probably throw some party in there as well, and disorganization.
Yes.
Whereas Nosara is a little bit more organized. Not that you'd know sometimes driving down the roads, but like in its, with regards to its beachfront, its natural parks. Like, I think in Santa Teresa, you could start a chainsaw and not much would happen. You do that in Nosara, in 2 seconds, someone's going to be there.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I love about Nosara is it's not everyone gets it. And I think the best brands are like that. The people who understand Nosara and want it, I would argue nowhere does it better. Um, but there's definitely people that show up and just don't get it, and that's great. In terms of Santa Teresa, yeah, they've been our, kind of competitive sister community for a long time. And Santa Teresa has some incredible components to their community. Their restaurants are amazing. The natural environment. If you're a high level surfer, they've got incredible surf breaks down there. But yeah, it's definitely a very different vibe within the community. I think they're a little more party centric. Nosara's very wellness driven, very family oriented. Not that you can't find wellness in Santa Teresa or that you can't find party in Nosara, but I think overall that's how I would kind of separate the two.
Yeah. No, I agree as well. I always for Playa Grande always reminds me of Nosara years back. I don't know if you've been in because of the subdivision,
Yep.
because of the national park. I'm always like, could Playa Grande one day be Nosara? I think what Playa Grande potentially is missing is the hotels like the Harmony, and it doesn't have that yet, and I don't think it has the water infrastructure in order to be able to develop that. And what's existing there, you know, um, I spoke to one of the hotel owners there who has a hotel up for sale, and he's like, "Rich, this place will never make money. Like this is like a something that people do for conservation and love. Like the property won't make,
Right.
So." And I think that that's kind of the thing that where I'm with Grande, where I'm like, look, I think the thing holding it back is that linchpin hotel because it just doesn't have it.
Yeah, I mean, Nosara, again, I've been kind of in it for a long time. And so it's been this fascinating. We've spent a lot of time trying to find out what the secret sauce is, right? And I think it's a little bit of we got, there was some early planning and some smart people at the helm that set a tone. We got lucky with, high quality investors like the owners of the Harmony Hotel that came in early. Um, Even though it was extremely painful for me, the 2008 downturn was really healthy for the community. It scared away some investors that were, on track to do some poor projects. And so, yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm not sure people really understand, but as a surfer, the Playa Guiones is an absolute phenomenon in the world. And the way that I talk about it to my clients, because people are more familiar with like snow skiing, is Playa Guiones is like a green or a blue run every single day of the year. And there's not very many, if any, beaches in the world that you can literally surf every single day on any tide, no matter what.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that the waves are always going to be perfect, but you can literally paddle out and catch a wave every day. And the wave itself is ideal for beginners, intermediates, families learning together. If you want to teach your kids to surf, I mean, it really is incredible for that particular surfer. Whereas I love Grande. I go up there, I can get barreled. The offshore winds are great, but my wife doesn't want to surf in Grande.
Yeah.
And so that to me is also a big factor. I mean, where Nosara is now is for mostly factors that the original developers could have never predicted, which I think is kind of amazing.
I think that's the beauty of Costa Rica. Of a lot of it's all organic. Like it just happened. There were these elements all put together. There was like a good foundation, but there was no 30, 40-year vision that someone was hammering. Like a lot of it organically happened on this just great foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also one of the things I like about the community is even though Nosara has had all this growth and it's grown, it's still very much a community where people need to participate. There's still things that need to happen to keep the community on a good path. And I really think that that's what makes Nosara special is that people who live here and move here take that seriously. People are contributing and engaging, and that's a big part of life here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I think that that's what makes beach towns really succeed is having a really strong community.
Yeah. So, it's not always easy,
it's not. Yeah. Especially where the rest of the world, like community is being, and COVID didn't help, kind of, is eroding away slowly. Whereas in Costa
Yep.
Rica, I mean, community is a big part of the culture here.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a big factor for us that I've seen over the years, which is, I mean, regardless of where you are politically, people are uncomfortable in North America. I mean, because we also have a huge Canadian contingent that has bought and continues to invest in Nosara, and a lot of it has to do with just feeling uncomfortable. COVID politically, there's all these different things that have people, I don't want to say nervous, but just seeking. They're looking for something that, hey, I think there's maybe a better way to do this, or and whether that's full-time or part-time, it's the lifestyle is here for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let me just change gears a little bit, because I always like to bring in the vacation rental element, of things, and especially in Nosara as well. I mean, if you were to create, if there is such thing as a perfect vacation rental in Nosara, what attributes would it have and why? And then I'll ask you the second question after that, which is like expectations, on returns. But like, what would it look like?
So definitely our best vacation rentals are 3 to 4 bedroom homes, newer construction and architecture design. We've seen a strong push in the tropical modern direction for architecture. Renters love it. My theory on that is that type of architecture in the US is a lot of times out of reach, financially for most people. And so to be able to see a really cool tropical modern home and rent it and experience it for a week, I think is a big driver for people. That's not to say it's the only architectural style, but that's definitely the trend right now. Walking distance to amenities and the beach trumps everything. People, on vacation love to not have to get into a car.
Yep.
And so that's definitely our kind of dream rental scenario. In terms of returns, I think it's not too difficult to hit that 5 to 10% return. But as you mentioned earlier, our clientele is a little bit different in Nosara. We 3 years ago joined forces with Sotheby's, and so our clientele, I'm dealing more and more with clients who really are only interested in renting a few times a year to help cover their costs, or in a lot of cases, not at all.
Yeah.
There are people who are definitely, running that Airbnb business and churning clients through, and the cash flow can be really, really good. But definitely we're seeing a shift in the community where I think more and more people are moving away from that too.
Yeah. If you were to do something out of the ordinary, if it was to be a vacation rental in, let's just say in Costa Rica, rather than just Nosara, just something that's not there or something you've ever thought of, does anything come to mind?
In terms of what I think would be an interesting thing?
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I've always thought about tree houses. Like nobody really does luxury tree houses in Costa Rica. Like we have luxury tents with Nayada resorts, but like where's the funky, cool, Robinson Crusoe style tree houses?
Yeah, to me it's waterfalls. I think there's something so magic about waterfalls. We have a spot that we love to go to in the mountains called Carolina Lodge. The cabins are very, very rustic, but we have a cabin we love, and it's right on this river. You can walk down a path, jump in. There's waterfalls to play in. There's something just really magic about that. And being Costa Rica, the waters, we go to waterfalls in the US in the East Coast, and the water's freezing in North Carolina or something like that. And so here it's, comfortable, and I think they're really special. So I would say, people targeting that for vacation rentals is a really interesting angle that I've never seen.
I was on a property in Manuel Antonio a few months back, and I think it had like 15 waterfalls, and the client was talking about doing lodges with its own private waterfall and like swimming hole. And I thought that's really cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. We, part of my love for real estate is that creative component, and Costa Rica is so good for that. I mean, compared to most places in the States, the zoning and constraints that we have here are so much less than what most, especially Americans, are used to dealing with. And so to be able to come down and invest and create something, both incredible local materials, sustainably farmed hardwoods, all of that. To me, if anyone is in that kind of creative space, like that's, it can be super fun. That's the best part of investing here, is not only can there be great returns, but also it can be super fun.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I usually say I don't do anything unless it's fun. And I let like anyone that I work with know that I'm like, guys, but I like, it's part of our philosophy here is to have fun. So if you're not gonna have fun, don't come.
Well, and it's so important because that's a through line. If you have fun creating it, the chances of you connecting with an audience or a market that want to rent it, they're going to feel that or see it or get to experience it. So yeah, I agree.
I mean, you've probably seen quite a few people make some mistakes over your 20 plus years here in Costa Rica. I mean,
yeah,
buying property in Costa Rica, what are the common mistakes that you see people make and how can they be avoided? Or what advice would you give them?
So, I think one of the things is not working with the right professionals. I do think that there is a lot of value in working with a realtor or somebody to help guide you that not only knows the local market in terms of being able to show you around, but can speak intelligently to the legal process and the risks and the liability and this type of stuff. I think that is the surest way to kind of get right footed from the beginning. Um, Outside of that, I think people tend to come down and fall in love and they get excited. And we see this a lot where, if they come down and they've got an $800,000 budget, all of a sudden, well, if I did this and I got that and I talked to my cousin, we could spend maybe, $1 million or $1.2 million. And I always encourage people, like, look, stay within your budget, keep it fun. To our earlier point, if you reach to make it happen and now it's stressful because it's not comfortable financially, that sucks the fun out of it, and then it's a job versus a great investment. So those two things, I think, working with vetted professionals and staying within a budget are two things that I think would be great, to keep you on track.
That's great advice. What listing do you currently have, Brandon? I always like to ask people this. What listing do you have that interests you and that you still believe delivers value?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a good question. For me, as an investor, I always have my eye on at least, 3 or 4 things that are interesting.
Oh yeah.
But right now we've got, let's see, in Delicious, the community I mentioned earlier, there's a 50-acre farm that has a waterfall and a swimming hole. It's raw land, has no utilities on it, but it's very much right on the edge of where everything is going. There's some developments coming up around it. That's on the market for about $10 a meter. It's a bigger chunk, so but I think that's a great value for somebody that either wants to do, a ranch where they have a home and 50 acres for their kids to run around and just have a ton of privacy. It could be 4 families that want to join up and take it down together, or it could be a developer that wants to create a project, and it ticks all those boxes.
Yeah.
So that's one more on the edge, and then more in town, we have a client who's worked with us over the years, and he has a handful of lots in K section, and he's my favorite type of seller in that he's knowledgeable, and he understands the market and actually wants to sell. And so I think those lots are fantastic as well.
Awesome. Well, if anybody's interested in them, I'm going to be putting all of Brandon's contact details in the description anyway, so you can reach out to him. But my last question that I love to ask everyone, Brandon, if you inherited $500,000 and had to invest it into a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you invest it in and why?
You know what? I love raw land.
With you.
Low carrying costs, no operations. I joke often that my 2 main investment strategies are buying yellow houses and painting them white, and I buy overgrown properties and I clean them. And it's amazing how much value you can add just by making something look a little better.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Brandon, this has been amazing. I really appreciate you taking time out of what I know is a very busy day with us here. Again, as I mentioned, I'll put all of your contact details in the description, but really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yep, I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that podcast there with Brandon talking about Nosara. Again, he's been there for, since 2001, has an intricate knowledge of how the market really developed. And, I've always kind of said that, Grande kind of is on the same kind of trajectory. There are some few differences there, but we're not seeing $1,000 a square meter in Grande, but we are seeing what probably in the $300 to $400 a square meter. It continues to creep up, but the beachfront closer stuff is very close. It's probably like $500-$600 a square meter. It's kind of just the setback from there in Grande. So anyway, we'll see kind of, what happens over the next coming months and also year. I think we can see there's a bit of softening in the market, which I love because again, it's I think everybody loves a deal. And I think it's moving in a lot of markets to a seller's market. A buyer's market rather than a seller's market. But there are still some markets that are still very strong on the seller side, like Tamarindo condos. There just aren't that many available. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that podcast there with Brandon, his viewpoint of just how it's kind of gone out from Nosara to Delicias in Gaza and Ostia now. And just great vacation rentals is, walking either ocean view or walking distance to the beach there. So, but remember, guys, if you want to reach out to us, you can do info@investingcostarica.com. That's info at investingcostarica.com. All the contact details are in the description. Hope you've enjoyed the podcast. If you have, guys, please give us a 5 stars, thumbs up, and share this podcast with anyone that you think it might be helpful for. A lot of you have contacted me saying, hey, Richard, thank you very much for getting all this information and giving these contacts out there. People that have been on the podcast have thanked me because they've got a lot of business from it. And that's really it. It's just trying to get the word out there because Costa Rica, fortunately and unfortunately, it fortunately is a disorganized paradise. But there is some beauty in that as well. I think there's huge amounts of beauty. But anyway, until the next podcast, guys, we'll catch you later. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.